This is a PokePress Special Report. Hi everyone, Steven here. So a few weeks ago I was lucky enough to participate in an episode of the Train Station at 8 podcast. This is a podcast that covers video game music, and their format is they cover one song in its entirety through each episode. So the one we did for this one is the Pokemon theme. Not the Pokemon game theme, but the theme from the first season of the TV show dub. So we go over that and talk about sort of the structure and other things about it. The full episode is available out there on their podcast feed, which I'll link to in the video description, but I kind of wanted to get the audio here and do an annotated extra information version for you to listen to. It's pretty much the same audio that's on the feed, probably not quite as good quality, and all the music has been edited out. But I certainly hope you'll enjoy. Thanks.
Hello, welcome. We've saved you a seat. Welcome to Train Station at 8, a video game music podcast. This is episode 28, and I am your host, Brian. Every week, we take one video game song and talk about it for a while. But this week, we're taking a departure from that because we have a song that, while related to a video game, isn't actually from a video game. And that is the original theme song to the Pokemon anime. I am a huge fan of this song, maybe against my better musical judgment. I don't know. We'll get into that. And joining me for that today is my brother, Steven. Hi, Steven.
You know, I bet all of our listeners thought we were about to say a Poets of the Fall song was coming up.
We're gonna,
because we talked so much about that last week.
Some were made for Alan Wake, but so that's closer than this would be. But we also have a guest here, Steven. Who did you get for us today?
Well, I found another Steven, or he found me, in fact, Steven Reich, who is a Pokemon expert in his own right, and even hosts a Pokemon internet music show. So, hey, Steven, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Glad to be on.
Absolutely. So, to start things off with, how about you let everyone know kind of who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Steven Reich. I run sort of an array of Pokemon things. We have an internet radio station, PIRN, plays Pokemon music, 24/7 pretty much. And then I have a YouTube channel where I'm known as PokePress, where we do news, interviews. Right now I'm doing a Let's Play of Pokemon Coliseum for the GameCube. And I've got a SoundCloud and, a few other things like that. So that's we're sort of a nebulous organization. But I do all sorts of coverage. I do interviews with Pokemon people, go to conventions.
Shoot. I thought you did interviews with Pokemon, and I was getting really excited there.
Well, actually, back in July, I did get to interview their press person about the Symphonic Evolutions concert series.
Awesome. Have you ever gotten to interview, like, the Pikachu voice actor?
Well, she's Japanese, of course.
Yeah.
Although they did use an English voice actor for some of the early seasons to replace some audio that they couldn't get a clean version of for the dub. So I could interview, I guess, Rachel Lewis someday. But, I've interviewed Eric Stewart, who was a voice actor for the first 8 seasons of the TV show. So I do get to see people on various parts of the franchise, but never anyone at the headquarters in Japan, not Mr. Masuda, anyone like that. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, the language barrier can be a big problem for that sort of stuff. So
it's a big problem for our show because we're a fan of
Japanese composers on.
Yeah, but so often it's just impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we just should bite the bullet and learn Japanese. It would open a lot of doors.
That'll only take a few years. That's a good idea. We'll put that in the idea jar, Stephen.
Yeah, actually, I took a couple night classes, non-credited at the UW-Madison in preparation for a trip I went on earlier this year to Japan. But I guess we'll probably talk more about that as the show goes on.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So starting off here, let's go ahead and just talk about what music we've been listening to recently. I'm going to be really ambiguous here and say, go ahead, Stephen.
I'll jump in first, sure. Even though it may seem rude, simply because I haven't been listening to very much since the last episode.
Shame on you.
We ended up recording those 2 shows within maybe 2 days, 2 days time.
A couple days ago, yeah.
So I've pretty much just been looping Jealous Gods, the new Poets of the Fall album.
For sure, yeah.
Which is just getting better. It's a great album. Honestly, the only other 2 things I've been listening to would be a little bit of the Pokemon internet radio station that Steven was talking about.
Nice.
And the Sega internet radio station.
Oh, what is that called again? You mention it like every episode.
Radio Sega. I know. Every week I mention it.
Nice.
And I think that's kind of an interesting touchstone because if you're a regular listener of Radio Sega, you'll know that it's usually not just straight Sega music. There are so many arrangement albums and strange like J-pop ties that somehow relate to Sega. And it's really fun to discover that kind of thing. Yeah. And in the short time I was listening to the Pokemon internet radio station, I found the exact same thing. Like, of the 5 songs I listened to, none of them were like
just a Pokemon song from a game.
The battle song from the original Pokemon or something. It was like some Japanese arrangement of a Pikachu ballad, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. But I really
do you play the Meowth Party? Isn't there a Meowth Party song?
Yeah, there is. We play the Japanese version of that. The English version has never really been released. It was obviously part of Pokemon Channel on the GameCube.
Yeah.
And started out as a GameCube tech demo. But we do play the Japanese version of that. There's a number of, especially in Japan, a number of Meowth songs in that language.
That's one of the very few obscure Pokemon trivia facts that I know.
You went really in depth about that, right? You're writing a feature about it?
I was writing a feature about weird like Pokemon spin-offs, like the Pokewalker and the Meowth Party Space World demo that premiered in, I don't know, what year was it?
2000.
Yeah, it was 2000.
We have on the show every time we're talking about Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I almost had all the information. So I do know a little bit about that. I absolutely adore Meowth's Party. It was really hard to track down information about it. But
yeah.
If you want to see Meowth dancing around, fairly rudimentary computer graphics and singing a sort of classic rock pop song, then that has you covered.
It's not niche at all. Everyone wants that. Yeah, what am I listening to? Like you, Jealous Gods. Not much else. I listened to the... so I was creating a character for Pathfinder, and I wanted to listen to some music while I was doing that, so I listened through the Morrowind soundtrack.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good, fantasy soundtrack or anything like that. But then I wanted something that was more tailored to my character, and I was creating a... Dampier at the time, which was like a human vampire hybrid, so I just looped Bloodthirst Concerto from Soul Calibur 5.
Oh wow, that's a really good pick.
I've done stuff like that. That was neat. And then I've also been listening to some Anarchy Online, well, mostly like just one song. Do you have is there a standout song for you from Anarchy Online? Because I know you've heard the soundtrack.
Anarchy. Let me see what I have in my iTunes library. I haven't listened to it in a while.
Okay.
Is it? I remember liking Mighty Castle of Adonis.
Okay, it is the I believe it's
Seascape. Is it Seascape? Seascape. That's the best one.
It's just the one I always listen to, and it's the one that reminds you of the game because it plays at like the very first area, and that's about. I didn't get much further than that in the game, but man, is that an incredible song! So I've listened to that quite a few times actually. But yeah, not a whole lot, mostly because it has only been 2 days, and even. Given the past week, Jealous Gods has really been taking up most of my listening time. Yeah. So what about you, Stephen, our guest?
Let's see. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I went on a trip to Japan earlier this year, and I was able to go to the Pokemon Center, which was pretty cool, and I picked up a Japanese 3DS LL there. Mm-hmm. And it's actually been a good purchase because, let's see, back in June I was able to buy the Japanese version of Pokemon Art Academy that doesn't come out until October here in America, unfortunately. Okay. But even better, I was able to purchase a couple weeks ago the Japanese version of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, which for some reason in Japan comes out 3 or 4 weeks ahead of the U.S. date. So I've been playing that, of course, and unlocking as much of the music. I think today I just got the final 115th song unlocked. There's a particular achievement or accomplishment that you have to do within the game to get that song into the sound test, and I finally got to that today. So that was that was pretty big. But so I've been listening to the soundtrack to the game. And, for the station, we have, generally it's pretty much all Pokemon related in some way, but we kind of make an exception for the Smash Brothers games because those contain a substantial Pokemon component.
Mhm.
So you'll hear stuff from that, but not stuff like, Nintendo Land or WarioWare or stuff like that, because it just doesn't really have a Pokemon component to it. So I kind of skirt the rules with Smash Brothers and maybe one or two other things. So I've just been listening to that. So far, as far as going through it, the way it works is I pick out, songs in blocks, 3 each week until we go through all the tracks, and then I rotate in one each day from the ones I have in the mini list I've compiled.
Yeah.
And so I think some of my favorites, definitely like the menu theme. It's pretty nice. If you have the demo, it's the one from there. I'm trying to think what else there is. I don't want to get too far into spoilers, but in the classic mode, there is a new final boss that you can get to on the upper difficulty levels, and the music that goes with that is pretty cool. The name of it, in case you just want to edit out this part for spoilers, is called Master Core.
Okay.
You have the master hands, and now you have on the upper difficulty levels, they'll appear to die early, only to reveal this shadowy. It depends what difficulty level you're on, but this shadowy form that you have to defeat, eventually leading to this core of energy that you just hit as hard as you can until you can knock it out of the arena. It's pretty neat. They spoiled it on the Smash Brothers stream from the Treehouse a couple weeks ago, so it's not super secret, but it's probably one of the coolest new additions to the game in terms of any sort of boss character or challenge in there. Obviously, we've got some great characters like the Duck Hunt dog. I just love the audacity of that. But the other music I've been listening to lately, just today, I search on YouTube for new Pokemon music pretty much every week, just to see what there is out there and what's going on. So a lot of it is just videos of people taking game music and posting it up. But today I was able to find something called I believe it's the Cerulean Dance Floor or Dance House. I don't remember the exact title, but it's this sort of dance music mix of the Cerulean City theme from the original games. And it's really nice. I'm planning on putting it in along with 3 new tracks from Smash Brothers 3DS this week on the station. So always nice to find some stuff. That's something that's really gotten better over the last 4 or 5 years. Is that as the Pokemon community has graduated high school, college, and started making their own music, and of course with things like iTunes and other means of music distribution, it's much easier for me to find good, high quality fan output.
Yeah, that's really true.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about like the aging fan base there, as they're able to get their talents put towards it. I hadn't really considered that, but
because all those people who grew up, just playing the Pokemon games, now need an outlet for all of that
enthusiasm.
Pokemon, Pokemon enthusiasm. And I mean, OC Remix has already put out 2 Pokemon albums in the past.
That's right.
Just as an example. Good. There's Pokemon Reorchestrated, and there's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely great. So we do have some stuff from Pokemon Reorchestrated, both the original album, the actual live orchestra that they were able to get, I think it was late last year or early this year, and then their new Hoenn pack that just came out within the last month or 2.
Yeah, I only have a weird handful of that music. I should honestly go complete my collection, but I really like what I've heard so far. It's very cool stuff.
Nice. Jumping back for a second, I was just curious about the Smash Bros. Soundtrack. Brawl had a really interesting soundtrack because it brought just so many different composers in to make a really just varied track list of tons of different Nintendo stuff. What did you think of the soundtrack as a whole, and how do you think it compared to the other games?
Well, let's see. The 3DS version, I have to assume that they had more constraints for the 3DS version of how much, pre-recorded music versus stuff done on the hardware, just because of the file size. I think the game is maybe about a gig or so. If you download it, I'd have to look at the actual number of blocks and then convert it. But they've got a variety of things. Some of it is previous stuff. They've got a couple tracks from Brawl in there. One of my favorites that they did bring back for Smash Run is the Stickerbush Symphony remake Bramble Blast.
Of course.
Yeah.
First of all, it's just a great song to begin with from Dave Wise, but also it's a great version, great alternate version there. I do love that. The soundtrack overall is very good. Since I've only managed to record to my computer about the first 30 or so tracks out of over 100, it's going to be probably a little while before I can make a final determination. But every stage generally has at least 2 songs that go with it. It seems like a pretty complete package. So
nice.
From what I have heard so far, I really liked it. Yeah. I just can't get enough of the theme. It's just perfect.
Oh yeah,
it's exactly what I want.
It is that same one from the trailer, right? Basically the same melody.
You mean the ba-da-bum?
Yeah, the one.
Ba-da-bum. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what they're using for the game. I don't know. I haven't played the demo yet.
Yeah, the demo, like I said, it came out in Japan just a couple days before the game launched. So I had 30 uses, but I only had to wait like 2 days for the game there. For the US, there's a little bit more lead time, and it's been interesting seeing the how much people will practically beg for like the Club Nintendo ones that have the unlimited uses and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see if Nintendo does more of those sort of giveaways with demos for their Platinum members over the next year or so.
For sure. And it'll be really interesting to see what the Wii U version has, because it's going to be like all different music because all the stages are different. And of course the quality
by definition, it has to be different music.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to see where they're going in that direction.
Yeah, I've seen a fair bit of the Wii U version. I was very fortunate earlier at E3. They did a series of Best Buys across the country that week. They did a couple days where you could come in and play the game. I know some of the places had people going out the door, around the block and stuff like that just to play, a couple minutes of Smash. We had one here in Madison with a much shorter line, so we were very lucky there. I got to see a lot of it.
Awesome. Yeah, everything I've seen of it and heard really looks to be shaping up. So that's pretty much my most anticipated game coming out, even. So.
Yep, me too. And there are a lot of cool games coming out.
Great. So now that we're all done talking about what we've been listening to, is that everything you had, Stephen, or was there something else?
That covers it for me.
Awesome. We can move on to what our main attraction here is, which is going to be Pokemon. So before we jump on to the song itself, what's everyone's background with Pokemon?
Let's let Steven start, because I have a feeling his is going to be...
We're going to look so bad in comparison, though.
I'm just putting off the inevitable.
All right. Go ahead, Steven.
All right. So it's actually a little bit of a weird case where I grew up, because for most Americans, it's always a little confusing. Well, which came first? In Japan, of course, the video games came. And then about a year or so later, the TV show, and then the card game, and a bunch of other things followed there. But here in America, if you lived in most markets, the TV show came ahead of the games by a couple weeks. That wasn't the case where I lived, because I grew up in a place called Janesville, Wisconsin, which is just south of Madison, southeast a little ways. And they were planning on putting the Pokemon TV show on this new TV station that was going to be a UPN affiliate, and they wanted to put their transmitter right in downtown Janesville, where I grew up. But they had a dispute with the city, and they were delayed getting on air, so we didn't see the TV show where I came from, because even though I was in between 2 television markets, that station was supposed to cover both of them. So, Milwaukee and Chicago, they got to see Pokemon as a cartoon before the games came out, but we really didn't where I'm from. So I got into the games. I had seen some of the TV show on a VHS tape of the first couple episodes, but until it came to the WB in early '99, I didn't have a whole lot of experience with it in terms of the anime. So my introduction really was the games. I think the sort of the feeling was from those of us who knew it was coming that, well, it's an RPG, even with Final Fantasy VII, which was out by that point, it's not going to sell. It'll sell okay, but it'll never be a mega phenomenon. And lo and behold, that's what it became.
Yeah, a mega evolution phenomenon. See Pokemon trivia there. No, that's super true. I think one of the big things that people weren't counting was the portability factor. Like, it couldn't look as cool as console games, but man, kids could take it everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was huge.
Yeah, it really, it really brought back the Game Boy, which was kind of on its way out. It launched in America around the same time as the Game Boy Color, but it really gave that platform some new legs and helped Nintendo maintain its dominance in the portable space.
So I assume you played the first Pokemon games, right, on Game Boy?
Red? Yep.
Yeah. Did you continue playing them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Installment
I
after
had
installment.
Red. The only Pokemon game I know my sister to have played, she had Blue. And we played not really with each other too much. I think she kind of lost interest. But I played, Gold. And, third generation, I think it was Sapphire. Yeah, it was Sapphire. And, I got Leaf Green moving forward, fourth generation games. I got Diamond and Platinum and, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I got one of those.
Okay,
Black and
nice.
White, every generation so far. I even own, I think I own X twice, once on my American 3DS and once on my Japanese one. And I also own Y on my American 3DS. So I'll probably end up getting one of the versions on my Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire on my American one, and then one on my Japanese. So
Okay, that's very thorough, because I know you're obviously into the Pokemon series now. It's practically your job, and you said you started out with the originals. But almost everyone I talked to drops off at some point.
Mhm.
And I mean, Brian and I were kind of the same way. Then they rediscover it later, or maybe they don't. I was just curious to see if you've been loyal through and through. Brian, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so what about the Pokemon series, do you think inspired your loyalty to it, more than other series out there?
I think a lot of it's the community. I play the card game as well, not real competitively, same with the video games. But I get to meet other people who play the card game and the video games. I get to talk with them. I get to interview a lot of them, of course.
Yeah.
And the community really cannot be beat. I think that's what really struck me about it is that when I talk to people who run other card games and stuff like that, they mention they really like the Pokemon people. They're really nice. And, by and large, and it's just really a great community. I think that's really what keeps me going with it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It does make sense. There can be a whole lot of community that's built around those trading card games, especially. Magic has a massive community and all that, and just the whole vibe of Pokemon, how positive and friendly it is and welcoming. I can see that transferring really well to the community around it.
Yeah, definitely. As for us, we didn't nearly have that extensive of a Pokemon history.
No.
It was the cards that got us into it. We were, I don't know, I was probably 9 or 10 at the time, which would
something
have made
around there.
you
Yeah, 7. I would have been 7.
7 or so. And really, we collected the cards. We didn't play the game. We watched a few of the anime episodes. We never, kept up with it. We didn't watch it live on TV. We played the games at friends' houses. We didn't own Game Boys.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet, we became obsessed with the universe in general. We would buy books. I remember buying the strategy guide for Pokemon Snap,
But
even though we didn't own
Snap.
Pokemon Snap.
Yeah,
it
It was
was.
a fun era.
We knew all the Pokemon names by heart. Generation 1.
Yep.
Once the second generation came along, we started to kind of drift away.
Mm-hmm.
In the third generation, we didn't know what was going on.
And then we jumped back in for one generation, and then we jumped back in for X and Y, but nothing consistent. Even though our love for Pokemon in general and the music and all that persists.
I love the music. Honestly, just the series in general is one of my favorite RPGs ever. Certainly one of my favorite Japanese RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely have a big love and respect for the series. I just don't know much about it. You could probably name a random Pokemon, and I would, unless it's from the first generation, I might not even know what it is.
Tonkeldur.
Tonkeldur. I know that one.
All right.
So that's kind of where we stand in Pokeland.
This has been a PokePress special report.